Hi, welcome to KC Anytime Sunday. My name's Elsie and I'm really glad you're able to join us today. We're going to have some great worship, KYE check-in, and we're going to have the next message in our Christmas series.
Oh, holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appeared and the
and welcome to QIU.
I'm Max.
And I'm Evie.
Okay, Max and Evie, a couple of questions for you. What's been the highlight of your week?
Mine's netball starting back at my school.
Mine will be watching the Motherwell game.
Cool. Tell us one tradition you and your family has at Christmas.
Well, every Christmas Eve night, our Christmas pyjamas are put under the Christmas tree.
Okay.
For me, it is on the first Saturday of every December. Our family will have a Christmas breakfast. This includes the Browns and the Smiths.
Okay. And what is your favourite Christmas carol or song?
My favourite Christmas carol is Away in a Manger, and my favourite Christmas song is I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day.
Max?
My favourite Christmas carol would also have to be Away in a Manger, but my favourite song would be Last Christmas.
Okay. And if you could tell us one thing the church could pray for this week, can be something personal or something going on in the world.
Our Papa, because he's not been very well lately.
But the COVID-19 vaccine that's recently been approved by the UK government works perfectly.
Brilliant. Okay. Bye.
Hi, I'm Vicky and I'm part of the King's Church. I am part of the Power Kids team and love getting to spend some of my Sundays with the kids in our church. Usually in December you would see me and the other Power Kids leaders putting on a nativity, which we love to do. It also stresses us out quite a bit, I must be honest. This year we are really missing doing it, and we're trying to put together a virtual nativity which we're really excited to get together and show you. And this year that has also led to me being able to speak to you this morning, which is really different for me, but I'm looking forward to doing it. Last week Robert spoke about Jesus being the light of the world, and this week we're continuing on in that theme with you being the light of the world. So that's why I'm sitting in front of my Christmas tree. I thought it would be a nice backdrop with the Christmas lights twinkling behind. Jesus knew that he wasn't going to be on the earth for a long time, so he knew that he had to have a plan for the world to stay lit when he wasn't going to be on the earth any longer. And that's what we're going to have a think about and talk about this morning. So first of all, we're going to look and see what it says in the Bible about it, and I've asked my lovely Auntie Jessie to read from Matthew, and I'll pass over to her just now.
Matthew 5 verses 14 to 16. Here's another way to put it. You're here to be light, bringing out the God colours in the world. God is not a secret to be kept. We are going public with this, as public as a city on a hill. If I make you light bearers, you don't think I'm going to hide you under a bucket, do you? I'm putting you on a light stand, now that I've put you there on a hilltop, on a light stand, shine. Keep open house, be generous with your lives. By opening up to others, you will prompt people to open up with God, this generous Father in heaven.
I'm sure that everybody has enjoyed seeing the Christmas trees appearing in people's windows, and there's loads of lights this year, which has just been lovely. It really brightens up the dark nights when you're driving home from work or round about and you see the lights just brightening everything up. Noah, my son, really loves counting Christmas trees, so when I pick him up after my work from my mum's and we're driving home, he loves to count them. And I think our latest count we got to about 164 trees or something like that, which from my mum's house to my house really isn't that far, so it's really, really exciting and lovely to see all those lights brightening up the nights. Light really draws you in. My mum and dad used to tell me this story that when I was young, maybe 3 or 4, they were Christmas shopping in Hamilton and they turned around in a shop and I had disappeared. They couldn't find me anywhere. They were looking all around, shouting my name, and I was nowhere to be found. And they eventually found me sitting quite happily underneath the huge Christmas tree in Hamilton Town Centre. And obviously those lights just drew me in. I wanted to be beside it, I wanted to be near it, and that's where they found me quite happy. They were not quite as happy with me for wandering off. That's the first question that I'd like to ask you this morning, is to think back to what initially drew you to God. Perhaps it was the people that you encountered, maybe someone in your life, the way they acted, the way that they treated you, and it was them that drew you to God in the first place. Perhaps it was church, a church service. Perhaps it was being part of a church family. Maybe it was God's love, the peace, the hope of eternal life. Everybody could be drawn to God by lots and lots of different reasons. When Robert first approached the subject of talking about You Are the Light, there was one person that jumped straight into my mind, and that was my gran. Now, some of you will have known my gran, but many of you won't. She did come to the church before she died. And if you did know her, I'm sure you'll agree that she just radiated light. She was just such a lovely person to be around, and all her grandchildren were exactly the same. We just all loved our gran. She was gentle, caring, loving, funny. She had no airs and graces. She was just herself. She had no harsh words for anybody or about anybody, and no one was allowed to have any harsh words for us, including our parents. There would always be excuses made for why we were moaning or whinging. We were too tired or we were hungry. No one was ever allowed to say anything harsh to our grandchildren. Her smile just lit up her whole face, and she was never happier than when she had our family around her. Material possessions didn't mean anything to my gran. She was just happy with people. She was happy when she had the people that she loved around about her, and that made us happy too. She didn't have an easy life. She was a mum to 8. Her husband was an alcoholic before he became a Christian, and it wasn't an easy life that she had. She became a widow when she was just 52 years old, and she still had young children to look after. Now, I think there could have been loads of reasons why my gran could have been angry or sad or mad at the world for the way life had treated her, but she never ever was. She never complained about things that had happened in her life, but she always looked for the good things that could come out of opportunities, for all the blessings that she did have, rather than thinking of what she maybe didn't have. My gran just made you want to be around her, and she just was someone in my life who was just a light in my life, and someone that I would love to resemble in some way. The first part of the verse I'd like to look at this morning is when it says, "You're here to be light, bringing out the God colours of the world." When Jesus said this, he was talking to ordinary people. He wasn't talking to a room full of important people or people who had passed a series of tests to prove that they could be there. He didn't say that you might be the light of the world if you pass this test, do everything perfectly and prove that you can be. He said you are the light of the world. We don't need to be perfect or prove anything before we can have an opportunity to be a light in our world and reflect parts of God to others. What an amazing opportunity, but also what a huge challenge and responsibility. I don't know about you, but I certainly don't wake up every morning feeling like I'm ready to bring light to others. In the midst of family life and being busy working, I really feel like I'm some sort of Disney character waking up with a light around me and going around my day just spreading happiness everywhere I go. So how do we be the light, and how do we bring out God colours in the world? Well, the next part of the verse tells us, it says, God is not a secret to be kept. We're going public with this, as public as a city on a hill. A few years ago, Grant and I did a book study with a group of young adults by Max Lucado. It's called It's Not About Me. And Max Lucado used an analogy that has just always stuck with me ever since reading this book. And he used an example of the moon. Now, the moon itself has no light. It doesn't generate any light, and yet the moon lights up our night sky. The moon gets its light from the sun. The sun reflects onto the moon, and that's how we get moonlight. The book compares us to us being the light of the world. We're not expected to be perfect humans who can bring light ourselves to others. Instead, we reflect the light of God. I read this fact and just thought it emphasises this point even more. The moon only reflects 7% of the sunlight that falls on it. The sun is so bright that a little bit reflecting off the moon makes it the brightest object in the night sky. Only 7%? The next time you're out at night, look up at how bright the moon is and think that it's only reflecting a fraction of the light of the sun. And that's just like us. We're here representing a fraction of the light and love of God. But that's all it takes to be able to bring light into the world and transform darkness into light. It just emphasises that it's not about us and our capabilities. It's not our responsibility, and it's actually never about us. It's always about God. When we get right with God and are filled with His love, He will simply shine through us. The next part of the verse I'd like to focus on is, now I've put you on a hilltop, shine. I'm a teacher and I'm lucky to spend my days with children. You'll know that children are incredibly honest, and you can usually tell by their expressions, or they'll just literally put their hand up and tell you how they feel about your lessons or your jokes or your stories or your outfit. If you've had it on recently, they'll tell you that, or your new hairdo. Until I became a parent, I didn't realise the full impact I had on the children in my class. When I saw school through my kids' eyes, I saw the impact that a teacher's words, the certificates, the time they spent with them, how they made my kids feel. When my oldest Ethan was in primary 1, he loved his primary 1 teacher, and he drew a picture. Now, I mean, he was fairly good at colouring in, but it wasn't the best picture in the world, but he was so proud of this picture, and he wouldn't put it in his school bag. He wanted to carry it round with him all the way to school. So we walked round, and I knew how important this piece of paper was to him, and I saw him standing in his line and his teacher coming out. But I also know as a teacher how busy your day is, and you don't always have time to look at a picture that someone's brought in with you when you've had 75 pictures already. You're running around making sure your class is set up for the day. But his teacher walked up the line and he gave it to her, and she knelt down beside him, and I could just tell by the look in his face how much that meant to him, and it's always stuck with me, and it's really then impacted the way that I've then gone on to teach in the future. And I was also reminded of this last week when Nicola McAlpine put a picture of her daughter Freya on Instagram. Now Freya is in primary 1 and our class do like a star of the week, and she was really disappointed because she hadn't got it yet. But Nicola had kept encouraging her and telling her, work hard and one day it will be you, and last week she got that award. And the picture on Instagram, just her face was lit up with sheer joy that she had got this award. And in the same way, we don't always realise how our actions, big or small, can bring light to the others around us, whether we know them or not. So how do we actually do that? The next part of the verse tells us, keep open house, be generous with your lives. By opening up to others, you'll prompt people to open up with God, this generous Father in heaven. We reflect God's light by doing practical things which will draw people in, or by sharing your faith in what God has done for you to other people. One of the most natural ways for me to talk about church or faith is when we're doing things for others. And a great way our church do that is for providing meals at certain times in people's lives, like when you've had a baby. When my youngest Noah was born, the midwife was actually in when one of my friends from church came in with the meal, and I explained what was happening and she just could not believe it. And she came back a few days later saying that she had told all the midwives in the health centre that she just couldn't believe that people would do that. It also says we've to be the light of the world, not the church, not just to other people who believe or think the same as you, but to the whole world. The light shines brightest in the darkness, and light is needed most in darkness. Sometimes in people's darkest moments is when they're open to sharing their feelings or hearing how you coped with dark moments in your own life. How your belief in God meant that you were able to get through the awful reality of losing someone you love. I often thought that when I lost my own dad, I don't know how people with no hope cope with going through this, because it's hard enough when you do have hope. Maybe you're the person that through conversation will be able to help them in their dark moments, be it through losing a loved one, loneliness, money worries, job security. There's loads of things that people, especially now, are dealing with. If we think back to the start when I asked you to consider what drew you to God, I'm sure it wasn't some of these things. Judgment, being told you've got a long list of rules to follow and that you're a failure if you can't follow them all. Thinking of God as miserable, being judged by your appearance or life choices. If we're called to be the light, then why do churches and Christians often get this reputation of being judgmental people who'll be disapproving and ready to turn people away if they don't conform to what we think church folk should be like? To be the light and reflect God, I think that we need to go back to the fruits of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness and self-control. Again, God never expects us to be perfection, of being able to display these all of the time, and I'll be the first to tell you, quickly followed by my family, that I certainly don't. However, by knowing God and believing in God, you want to do better. You want to be more like Him, and you then start changing your behaviours and your lifestyle because you want to please God and become more like the person you know you were created to be. Christmas is a time when homes and streets are filled with lights, and especially in this year. This year has had many dark times for a lot of people, and it feels like people want to brighten up 2020 in any way they can. Hopefully this can be a reminder for us to be the light all year round. Churches aren't meeting. We haven't met together since March, and at the beginning of the year that thought would have been unimaginable. I've been receiving pictures of lots of the children for the Nativity, and it's been so lovely to see their faces, and they're all looking so grown up. A lot of them have changed so much, and it reminds me how much I do miss them all. But are we embracing the challenge that comes from this, the opportunity that comes from this unprecedented time? We've been removed from the comfort of the church walls, and are we using that as an opportunity to be the light to those around us? I read this the other day and would like to share it. We don't need to be not hurting, not broken to embrace Advent. In fact, acknowledging our broken, hurting selves is what Advent is all about. In our pain and in our sorrow, we get to reflect the light. We get to say, our God is bigger than this. Even in this, He is still good. We get to shine brighter than any strand of twinkle lights and push back darkness and reflect hope to a weary world. And that's certainly a challenge for me throughout the rest of Advent and also the first few months of 2021 when we know we're still going to be in the midst of this pandemic. So the question I'd like to leave everyone with is, do others see Jesus in us? Is our light visible? And as a reminder of this morning, I asked Grant to put one of his new toys to good use. He bought himself a drone, so hopefully this image just keeps the message of this morning fresh in everybody's mind. I hope that you all enjoy the Nativity on Christmas Day and that seeing the children really brings some light to your life. Thank you.
Well, folks, thanks for listening this morning. If you would like to discover and explore more about the light of the world, more about Jesus, you may have questions that you don't have answers to, then there's a wonderful opportunity coming up in the new year when we will run an Alpha course where you can bring your questions and hopefully we can bring the answers, or you can discover the answers as you discuss the questions. If you're interested in the course or would just like to know more about it, please contact us at alpha@connect.co.uk. That's alpha@connect.co.uk. Thank you.
Into the world, to darkness into the world, and joy unto the earth.
Thanks for being with us today. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, please don't forget to hit subscribe so that you'll be updated with any new videos that are uploaded. As it's Christmas time, also look out for special online services. We have one on Christmas Eve and on Christmas Day. There will be no service next Sunday. If you're new to the church and you're not watching this via our website, please visit us using the web address below. And also, if you want to submit any prayer requests, please contact us at hello@connect.co.uk. Have a great week. Thanks. Bye.